Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues, listeners, and anybody new, fresh to the show. We've got another great character today, and it's somebody not only do I know in the business, but I like to call him a friend. I've sat next to him, I can't remember for how many years, on various panels. I'm talking about Christian Bergfelder, who's the Senior Director Network, Airside and Airport Affairs Europe for DHL, and he's based in Leipzig. So Christian, lovely to have you on. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Chris. It's an honor to be on your show, and I'm really looking forward to our face-to-face here on the internet. Yeah.
It's very different. I just need to explain to people that are listening, both of us have been on regular panels and also committees, and we started off with COAG and then went to ICHC. So whenever we have the meetings, I don't know whether it's coincidence or comfort, but we always end up seeming to be sitting next to each other wherever it is in the world.
It's all pre-placed, and we're just managing it that I'm sitting next to a good experienced character.
Christian, I love that, mate. I didn't even have to pay for it. Seriously, it's also a pleasure all the times that we've been together. I know that you're very direct, you speak your mind, you stand up for the right things, and you don't just go with the wind. So I think that's so important in this day and age. So I really appreciate that, Christian.
Thank you.
Now, a little bit about DHL first and Leipzig. So some of the statistics I've got is that, pre-COVID, and obviously you'll correct me if I'm wrong how things are going now, but, roughly around the region of 2,000 tons of freight every day. You've got more than 6,000 employees, and there's some 23,000 plus flight movements every year, going to around 220 destinations. So my goodness me, that's a hell of a business.
Yes, slight change. The 220 destinations obviously is the complete network worldwide, not only Europe. That would be nice if Europe would be so big. But you're absolutely right. The numbers for Leipzig are true. It is our most, the biggest hub we have as a global hub. The major size, and really a pleasure to work in this environment here in Leipzig, where this all started in 2008. Yeah,
and for anybody that's had the privilege or the opportunity to visit and go into the facility, it's incredible. Absolutely amazing. The sheer size of it, the amount of time it takes you to walk from one end to the other, but also the way it works and the efficiency, and to think that when most people are sleeping, that level of production and efficiency is absolutely incredible.
Yes, for me, if I look at it, it's the amount of flights every night we're processing in the time frame we have between, usually I would say 10 and 4:30, 5 o'clock. About more than 80 flights this night in this time frame is being landing and taking off again. And then when you look at the numbers on how many shipments we process in a night, it ranges these days between 450 to 550,000 pieces a night.
That's incredible, huh?
It is. I've never imagined when I moved into this business from a cargo side and working with DHL that you have such a smooth operation, even as nobody is happy always. We all know that, and senior management probably always thinks a little bit different. But if I look at it honestly, what the guys in Leipzig do is a tremendous job.
Oh, it's amazing. And the little tagline that I remember from there is, when the DHL guy who was the tour guide, he said, "Our strong performance at night drives the world throughout the day." And he meant it with a passion. It was almost like watching one of these old Father Christmas films and working out how they managed to distribute all the presents in such an efficient manner.
Yeah, incredible. Absolutely.
So moving on from the size, the scale, and the efficiency and everything. Now, to keep that going, and obviously with your involvement for Europe, you have to make sure that all of the suppliers perform to a certain level and your level.
Yes.
Now, if you just want to give us a little bit of background, what does that entail, Christian?
Well, mainly, we're from an airside perspective, we're looking at all ground handling related issues within European environment. We've look after about 100 different stations we fly to every night. We work, I would say, with approximately 50 different handling agents in this region. Some of the bigger ones, obviously, but also all the local heroes we have. And it's a challenge sometimes to just follow up with them, considering how pressuring and challenging the work they perform on the ramp, as well as the flight crews perform, is quite a bit.
Exactly. So we'll come to the in-depth, like the types of auditing and everything. But just getting back to the main business. So with the way people have started to look at cargo now in a different perspective, and they're seeing how the supply chains of the world have to keep going, and things that people took for granted. Now they're really appreciating. Now DHL obviously supports in that way, but I would imagine there's a bit of a difference in the two streams of business, the business to business and the business to customer, or B2B and B2C as it's known. That must have been affected differently, huh?
Oh sure, yeah. The core part, I mean, we've stayed in lockdown altogether in the end, one way or the other. And what did we do when we can't go shopping? We went online, even more than we've probably already done before, and that caused a big additional stream for DHL on this business to consumer part. But if you look at the other side of the story, you have to look at business to business. And when you look at the lockdowns we had in Europe, even in some countries, especially Spain, Italy, where the lockdown was also for every business, everyone producing something. Obviously, if they don't produce something, nobody is ordering, nobody is delivering, and that has a clear effect on our business model as well. We were lucky, if you would say, that something is compensated through the business to consumer. That also it is compensating. We've got the so-called air cargo sales colleagues who are taking care of our general cargo support. Some places we left empty on the planes. They were able to fill up with general cargo, keeping the flights going with a full way. Nevertheless, we've still had hundreds of and thousands of tons of cargo, especially sitting in Asia, trying to get them back, because all the commercial, the belly freight was gone, and that shows the impact of this COVID situation we have globally, how many people and companies this is affecting.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's terrible. Now, talking about COVID, Christian, I hope you don't mind me letting people know, but you're a survivor as such. You actually went through it. You can tell us where you picked it up.
Well, as far as you can try to find out what the doctor said, I caught it on the 9th of March, being on a business meeting in UK with colleagues, internal and external. And then it broke out on the 12th, where I said, okay, I better get home as soon as possible, because I was traveling at that time, and I didn't want to get stuck in the country where I was at that time. So found a good way, a safe way to return. Overall, I would say, hearing what other people explain, I would say it hit me fairly light. 3 days fever. Certain things you still felt for a longer time, but the good case was they found enough antibodies you need to make sure that you can be seen as partially immune, at least, whatever the people, the doctors and the specialists will say, if that's really going to happen or not. But for my personal satisfaction and feeling, I'm good enough for the next couple of months.
And you were saying earlier when we were talking about it, for at least 4 or 5 weeks afterwards, you were still experiencing the after effects, or with the struggle with the breathing.
Yes, I mean it's hard to say if it is the breathing, and I was out of breath. That probably not, but you could feel it in your lungs. that something has happened to your body by this virus. And that's the scary part if you think about it. Even if you hit mild symptoms, when you read it, we still need to be extremely careful to make sure that we're not spreading this around. And when you see what's currently happening in Germany and in other places with hotspots developing, the biggest part what we be always aware is that we'll maintain this social distancing, even if our governments may not tell us to. Different views, but my personal view is very clear, and it's also what our company says. Be aware, make sure you do the classic hygiene and all that kind of stuff, because that's protecting us as long as this situation will last.
Yeah, no, exactly. And also where now people are starting to readjust the social distancing from 2 meters, 1.5 meters down to a meter, so that businesses can operate. But it is, the caveat is that it's with mitigating action. So you've got to wear a mask.
Yes, and I personally hate this mask, and especially if you go out and want to do some shopping and enjoy, but that actually takes it away. While we're back at this B2C, how this is going to grow over the next years, even, I would say. But it is absolutely critical that we maintain that distance, and that this is cost related to a certain degree. We also need to be aware, and in order to keep us all safe and healthy, just what we have to do. Exactly,
and it's not right for people who think it's okay not to do it, because it's not for your own protection, it's for respect and consideration of others.
I mean, that's what I think a lot of people get this wrong when you read the papers. The mask is not to protect yourself, it's to protect others if you are having the virus and you're potentially spreading this around. So it's about the fairness to other people to wear the mask, or if you don't do that, obviously it's the opposite side.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. But listen, I'm genuinely pleased you came through it, and it's an awful thing. And please God, the next 6 to 9 months until they come up with a vaccine, I hope there isn't too much of a second wave, but I do feel that there will be.
So I absolutely agree.
Yeah. Yes. So with that in mind, and the pressures on finance and the economies and everything, people have got to be very well prepared for that second wave, and they must learn from the experiences now of so many things that have happened that could have been better if they had been better considered and prepared.
Yeah.
Now, with that in mind, QHSS&E, so obviously from a hygiene perspective, it's going to be crucial moving forward. But from the basic safety, security and quality, that's going to have a big role to play in how people do things moving forward, which will obviously affect the way and the speed that businesses can come back online. Have you got any, you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've put in place even ways to protect the crews flying our aircraft, clearly saying, try not to enter the cockpit, knock on the door, tell through the door, here's your paperwork, load sheet, whatever it is, so they can come out and keep themselves protected. Trying to find a way how we can manage the operation and where we need to have these closer interactions between each other, but on the other side, try to avoid that. We even currently require masks when we're jump seating on our planes. Everyone who is joining the crew in the cockpit or in the galley area where we transport our jump seaters to wear masks. And I think, even as I don't like it very much, but it's part of a society to work together and colleagues working together to make sure that we'll protect each other.
Yeah, 100%.
And it goes the same way when we fly on vacation, when we have the requirements in airports at the gate area, even in the plane. I'm going on vacation tomorrow. So I'm looking forward if that carrier will require a mask or not. And how this first commercial journey is going to affect me on my travel plans in the future.
Where are you headed?
Greece.
Oh, well, and
flying out to Athens.
And what an amazing job Greece has done.
Well, we're going to the Penopolis area. I just bought a nice big plot with olive trees there yesterday. It was finally signed, so we're going to do some review there and just relax a week, doing nothing, I hope.
So you bought a place for yourself?
Yes.
Very nice. Are you going to build on it, or it's already got something on there?
No, it just has olive trees on it, so I'm going to be olive oil producer from the Kalamata region. But building a house is definitely a plan. We're not sure if this is going to happen this year or next year or whenever. It depends a little bit on when my financials are the right way to actually pay for that.
Yeah. And has it got sea view?
Yeah. Not direct, 700 meters, it's away. If you go over the trees, it's a beautiful place.
And right on the beach, nice sandy beach?
Around in that area, yes. A little bit driving with the bike, hopefully. Not taking the car necessarily, but you've got some great surroundings and places to eat, and that's the important part of during a vacation, right?
Yeah, I'm just filling in on some data there and detail for my future vacation. So,
I can send you lots of nice pictures and drone views, which I'm producing. So happy to share that with you.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to Shay Bergfelder and being your first guest. No, brilliant. Now, Christian, with regards to maintaining these standards, now, knowing you the way I do and also working with you on the ICHM and the way we wanted to simplify things and make things easier for people to relate to, and why recreate the same manuals, the same documents when something is already in existing and it's good enough to refer to. So I know we had some fun with that, and some of the other guys in the team did a great job. Now, as far as DHL standards are concerned, they're very high, and you yourself, you're involved in audits, validation, verification, etc. Can you just give us a little bit about, what's your focus? What are the codes of practice that you guys apply?
Well, I mean, the big difference between us as a cargo and integrator is obviously that the warehouse bit of cargo handling is usually in our own hands. When we have our global SOPs for this area, where my colleagues from Express look after that. When we do audits at our locations, depending on the risk-based approach, so we're not doing it every 12 months like it was in the times before, but we'll actually base it since 2 years on the risk, on the amount of incidents being reported through our SMS system, based on obviously previous audit non-conformities, also loadmaster reports, which I get from the team into the SMS. Based on that, we range between 6 months for a station which needs a bit more improvement, and 18 months for stations who are just more or less spotless. Because what I clearly can say is I don't believe in audits with zero findings. Exactly. Because we all work with people, and we have, as you said, still, even if we try for IGOM and ICHM and all that kind of stuff, even DHL has its own standards where we try to pull down our different operators' requirements into one standard. The small DHL IGOM, if I sometimes call it. We have all that, but there are always differences, and we need to consider this. So you always have findings because it's human factors. It's a human nature. We all make mistakes. I make my share of mistakes. I guess you do the same. So why should we think that our teams on the ramp or in the warehouse are not making mistakes? I fully accept that.
Yeah, 100% with the mistakes. I think the best auditor I've ever met is my wife. She keeps finding most of my mistakes regularly.
Well, it's the same way on my side, as well as my team around me, supporting me in all what we do. They sometimes knock the door and say, Christian, maybe you're going to change your view on that. And it's fully okay. And that's what we have to admit. And I think that's what not often enough we do in this industry. Because what's the typical reaction when somebody has an audit with findings?
Discipline, moaning.
Discipline.
Defensive.
It's even we sometimes don't record findings
Yes.
on daily shifts. We're not recording it in SMS because we fear that a carrier sees a finding as something negative.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of the views, especially also now in these times, with the pressure, with lack of staff, which you have, it's fully normal. We need to accept that mistakes are taking place. As long as we assess them the right way, make sure that the general principles are followed, that's all okay. So that's why zero finding, it's not realistic. It may look nice on paper and for commercial purposes, but it's not realistic.
No, and it'll. What's the saying? It's far better to go through the pain of discipline than go through the pain of regret.
Yes.
And
just say, yes, we're potentially putting too much pressure on the people, potentially the time constraint. Who is usually the poor guy who's got the blame, if you would say, to cover? It's the ramp supervisor, the turnaround coordinator, or the gate person saying, what's my fault if the passenger strolls through the stores more time than he's supposed to? I mean, that's not his fault. It's what we offer in the airport. I also do understand all non-aviation business is all important, clearly, but it's the poor guys on the ramp and in passenger services who are taking the blame for something sometimes they're not really to blame for.
I agree. And you mentioned there in passing SMS. Now, how long did it take you to address the SMS program to be able to confidently say that you genuinely have a very positive, open and non-fear just culture?
I think as DHL, we're not even there yet. If I look at the industry, if we're open and honest, we're far, far away from seeing the reality. Everyone has an SMS. Everyone says, yes, we do. Just been recently at a place where they've actually told me that they usually have between 3 and 5 cases they record in their SMS a year. If I hear something like that, I mean, that would mean all our people every day do nothing wrong and are reporting it, which is not the reality. I think from a DHL perspective, we've changed a lot in the last 1.5 years in our SMS. We're rolling out a new SMS training this year, completely new, reviewed manual, trying to limit it to, I think, what is 45 pages now from 130 in the years before, because nobody reads it. So let's try to simplify it, and that's what we've tried, and hopefully, and from my personal view, it was successful. So a good job there. But now we need to bring it out. We need to talk to the people and say, you need to report this for this and that. To judge a good reporting, to catch on your question, I think would be if we actually see all the small minor things being reported, not the damages, because there's no way around to not report them. Exactly. If there's a hole in a plane, then there's a hole in the plane. You can't hide that, if you want to say that way. But how do we record near misses? Do we record the procedure not follow, where we openly say we haven't marshaled the high loader into place or the stairs? That's for me, if I'll see them in an SMS, in a reporting, and somebody's taken up on this, assessing it, then we are there with a really good just culture. And to get there, it's only a lot of talk, to repeat the message, to make sure that everyone understands you don't have to fear when you come, because we're open to what you tell us.
Exactly.
Not how should you say that? I would say cheat the statistics, but obviously that wouldn't be the right approach there. But you know what I mean.
I know exactly. And the thing that you said there about reducing it down from 130 pages to 44, that's crucial. But also, Christian, the difference between accountability and responsibility, and making the managers commit to that and understand it and be aware of it, and really show that they're leading from the front. I mean, that's a big challenge, because like yourself, I can't even remember how many audits I've done all over the world. But when you turn up at some of the facilities and you see the amount of damage and you see the way that people are performing, you know that there is no correct leadership there. And the only reason that some of the things are being done is because they're being forced to be done by some of the customers or by incidents that have happened.
Yes, and how that we're not willing to spend the money which is necessary, because we all know safety costs money.
Yeah.
Only the savings come long term, hopefully, that you reduce your incidents and then the cost you spend on that. But I also think it is to the organizational failure. When I first took a human factors course from IATA, I've saw this case of organizational failure, which is where when we let our people continue with non-conformities, continue to work against the procedure we've communicated, then it is the fault of the station manager, of the whoever is responsible. Because if I let it go and not step in to try to correct it, even if it's costing me money, then it's not the fault of the poor guy, it's the fault of the manager. I have a good example which happened last year in one of our network stations, where a poor guy took a tug and hit the engine while trying at the same time to marshal a high loader into position and place cones around the aircraft.
Oh.
And the investigation showed, okay, well, obviously it was a clear no-go to drive and try to do all these things at the same time, but it showed that the management in that regard let them do placing cones with a tug, trying to not to walk. How I learned it, I said, you walk there, you place them, you don't drive in the circle of safety more than necessary.
Exactly.
Yeah, so the first instinct would be fire that guy because he damaged an engine and damaged the aircraft, of course, an AOG and whatever cost. But when you look at it twice, then you need to think, okay, but we let them do it.
Yeah.
We didn't step in as management, and whatever you want to call management, it's a different setup at any place. And I wouldn't even put them into fault, because if they don't know what to look for sometimes, then how could they be at fault? So it's a lot of organizational setup which you need to take place in this regard. And obviously it's something we try as well through our new SMS to put in with really the discussions, the first personal discussions with the guys.
And also having SAGs and formal meetings and follow-ups and structure, self-assessments, risk-based auditing. Those are all steps that make sense. But I also feel, Christian, I don't know what your opinion is, but I'm always impressed whenever I'm on an aircraft, and especially if I go to some of the smaller vacation destinations, and you see the pilot always comes down, inspects his aircraft, which you would hope he does. But I think that in some cases on some of the businesses, senior management, they don't ever put feet on ground anymore. And they're not aware, it's all well and good saying, we want a 22,000, we want a macro view, and we want to see from a bigger distance, and we want things in short lists and only 2 or 3 pages. You don't get down, the devil's in the detail, and it'll cripple you. Yes,
and then I think the important part is that you always have an understanding when you manage something, and when you're something responsible, that you know what the guys are doing. It's one of my clear approaches that even as I sometimes sit in the office like I do right now, but most of my time I'm actually on the road in the network, because I only believe in setting standards and rules in a realistic way. And how can I assess the realistic way or the reality if I haven't seen it?
Yeah.
So I'm taking my time. I'm performing the audits myself to a certain degree, join my team members. I'm negotiating the contracts for ramp handling and cargo handling together with my colleagues for the network. And I think I can only manage this part only if I know what the reality is, and that does not happen through sitting behind a desk. I fully understand that my bosses, which are all above myself, they can't do that, clearly. Well, that's why they have managers below them
who should be doing it,
them.
not filtering out the information.
Yes. You need to have the feeling that you can give your boss the honest feedback and your honest opinion, even as you sometimes have to take the gut feeling, because it's hard to pull down on statistics and numbers. Not for everything we have statistics and numbers.
Yeah, exactly. But it's also being brave enough and confident enough to actually speak up, because if you don't, then it affects the culture in itself.
Yes. And that's, I think, where we need to be very looking at the different sides. I'm coming from a time, I'm 51, so at the end of the baby boomers, they all say they had a different approach to look at things and get engaged to the younger generations these days. And I think it's, especially in aviation, important that we still can call it passion and behave like that and feeling responsible for it. Our former SVP always said, I'm feeling sick in the stomach if I see something not working. And I think this is what you need to keep if you want to manage it properly. Because only if you come to the situation, I don't care, it's somebody else's problem, or this is not my job. If I hear these expressions or see these behaviors, I know something's going wrong.
No, it's a sorry state if it comes to that. But it's also a terrible balance now for the younger generation. You know, a lot of them are going to be displaced through no fault of their own in an industry that they came into because they felt it was something that could allow them to grow within that industry, but also to have mobility. Like us, we've been all over the world with it, and lucky enough to live in different countries and experience it from a different perspective. But now, it's such a shame that so many youngsters are going to be displaced. There's going to be a big fallout. So, it will be a shame if the industry doesn't do something to keep a string attached to the people who are displaced, by at least letting them have access to certain training to keep their interest level in, so that, please God, in 2 years or so, when the business starts to need experienced people again, you take them and you welcome them back first.
I think I read the article today on the British news about a big handling agent letting go a big bunch of their workforce, and
50%.
Pardon me?
50%.
Yeah, and it's just unbelievable when you think about the numbers, when you read what airlines do, what ground handlers are forced to do, or now taking the steps. Even if you look at how many airlines already went into bankruptcy or being closed down, because the expectation is we won't see a return to normal business before COVID in the next year or two, but it's probably taking longer. And when you read this, my response to the colleague sending me the link was, I understand the approach. It's absolutely necessary to keep a company afloat. So from a business perspective, that is the only way you can do, especially when you're not getting the funds you need. Yeah. But I said also, I hope that the stuff which are being let go, then they get a chance to be rehired if something is going faster than we all expect, that they have a chance. They're the first ones to be called back. You're right. If they say we can try to maintain them training, even if they're not getting paid and they have the willingness, but I want to stay up to date, we should do everything we can to provide that as part of our corporate responsibility.
Yeah, totally agree. Now, within DHL, you've got the CIS program, yeah?
Yes.
You want to just explain a little bit about that, because that's something that impresses me so much. No matter who you meet in DHL, that's probably the one subject matter that they can all talk about from the same song sheet.
Yes, well, CIS, I'm not 100% sure, honestly, when this was created, but I would think easy about 5 years ago, when the company went to a big change on how can we further engage our own people into feeling engaged in what they do. Because we all understand these days that if we're not looking after our own people, keep them not only trained to the job they know, but also explain them on generally what our company does and where they sit within the long change of process in this company. And CIS, the Certified Industrial Specialist, I hopefully call it the right way, is a program where everyone who joins the company is being onboarded, getting explained what DHL is, who our founding fathers are, what we do, and then depending on their areas, the country they're in, there are lots of additional trainings. Some are face-to-face trainings, some are just online trainings, in order to get and understand what their requirements are. Most of them, I would say, are not legally required trainings, and that's what I think is really great on this program. But it's just trainings where they get understanding what aviation is, what customs is. So what a ramp agent usually is interested in customs, probably not.
Yeah.
By understanding what customs does and why they probably sometimes a bit late delivering the paperwork out to the aircraft, causing a delay or even additional hassle, is important to understand where do I sit, where do the others sit, and feeling engaged. And this is where our company, I really have to admit, is doing a huge amount on investment into our own people to not only be or to be the employer of choice, as it's one of our focus strategies. So not only earning money for the investors and the external people who have nothing to do with the company, but especially being a great place to work. And I'll have to say, it is really a great way and great place to work in this company. They're taking good care of you.
Yeah, no, I think it's something I've kept trying to say to so many people. If you want to change a culture, you actually want to aspire to be, it's like planting a tree for the future. Yes. It's not just picking a piece of fruit for today.
Yeah.
And too many people want to fast track it, but you can't do that with a culture. And you can't do that with, I'm not talking now about generations, I'm talking about decades of people.
Yes.
You've got to have it so it's like the baton being passed over and over and over. And it's a story that takes a while to tell, but once people have heard and experienced a story, they never forget a chapter, they never forget a character, and they can always bring it back to you. But so many people want it bang, 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 bang. Just put it on paper, and that's what it's not at all. People have to live it.
It's a marathon run, if you want to call it that way. It's not a short-term gain where you hope, okay, we've rolled this out, then next year everything is great. Maybe on paper, but in reality, it's the human factor coming into play again. And if you're being told something once, you say, okay, it's one of the typical brainwashing you get when you get hired in a new company. But you need to believe it is really meant by the company. And it's meant by the supervisors or by the managers, whoever it is. We need to all behave in the same way, and I think that is important. And we've seen not only focusing so much on the customer as we do, the focus there is just sometimes unbelievable, but we all know why. Because in the end, if our customers are happy, they buy, and our shipments and everything is growing, and the company is growing, and we need that in order to support our people, because you need to pay for all this. We need to always be aware, but it goes hand in hand. And if you're not look after or only look after your customers, trying to please them, but not look after your own people, you're going to fail. Yeah. And that's the clear message with the CIS program, as I see it.
Yeah, it makes people do things in a certain way. Not to say, as you quite rightly said earlier, people don't make mistakes. But I was doing a podcast last week, and I was just looking out the window, and I seen 2 things be thrown over the gates, and that was my expert delivery. You know, really cared for. They just straight over the gates, and it was because it was with an outsourced driver. You know,
I hope it was not a DHL outsourced driver.
Now, if it was,
don't tell me. Don't tell me.
If it was, believe you me, I would have told you. But no, luckily it wasn't. But I went mad, and I called them up afterwards. And what was worse, they sent me confirmation that I'd taken it. But as you know, my name is Joseph Christopher, but nobody calls me Joseph. And they put on there, Joseph agreed to it.
Yeah.
So I was mad. Anyhow, that's by the side. Now, Christian, you're also a trainer. And something I want to ask you as well. So most of your areas, I think all of your areas are TAPA certified.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're also now embarking on an ISO suite program, which makes sense, especially with what's going on now from IT security through traditional 9001 and then to 14001 and 45001. So it makes a lot of sense. But also ISAGO is a topical one now. Now, and I know you and me have both got feelings about ISAGO. So you're auditing at the moment. You've done a lot of what I call validation. So more of the desktop auditing because of the situation we've been in. But I believe you're actually changing that now.
Yes, I mean, we moved as soon as we were all going into lockdown move. Obviously, going to an audit someplace else wasn't possible anymore. So instead of just lying down and wait till all is over, we said, okay, we need to maintain oversight. How can we do this? We've started desktop audit. Notified with the first feedbacks that it's a hell of a work, and it's only paperwork related. It's nice to do that to verify if people have been trained, if the certificates are there. Yeah. But what is the important part? To say something about the quality of an operation is when you look at the operation as it is happening. I think that's where we focus on. We now started from 1st of June onwards again to go to the places. Obviously, I can't go to the States because as a European, I'm not allowed to. So no option there. But I can go to obviously Greece, where we've been last week on an audit. We've been in Croatia, and it all works with certain limitations still, and that's okay. But for me, the important part is somebody who's auditing and want to assess a station needs to look at a real operation and not just at paperwork, and that's where I'm slightly having my issues with the ISAGO approach. I'm training for IATA. I'm fully valuing IATA as an industry association, but not everything we do is always done in the right way. And I know the team around ISAGO is doing a lot to mitigate all these typical problems. It's just sometimes very difficult. It's a human part on how an auditor thinks and how you set it up. So overall, I'm happy if ISAGO is working. Problem is, for me and for us as DHL in the current environment, I haven't seen the result I need to see to move away from my own auditing or reduce my own auditing. And accept an ISAGO audit, because even I'm not allowed, I need to pay a pretty good amount of money to get an audit report who was done by ISAGO new auditors. And I said, I think it was last year or even 2 years now, last year when I was at a workshop in London, they said, yes, we find a solution and you can have a look at them. Never something came out of it. I have to admit, one of my failures was not to follow up fast enough. But I think that's where we still need to develop this further so that airlines and operators like us can trust what we see, what's coming out of these professional auditors for IATA being paid.
As well as the regulators, because obviously there's pressure from them as well.
Yes.
To make sure a carrier representing them is doing their audits. But I think that the issue is the quality of the trainers and the quantity of verification of their capability, engagement, attitude, and it should be a training coaching exercise, not something that people don't want and try and hide things when they know it's coming.
One of the biggest arguments to go for ISAGO is we reduce these auditing travel. And I fully agree when I listen to the colleagues in Venice from the handling agents there saying, yeah, we usually get the audit scheduled between May and September, where it's beautiful to visit the city, and they usually audit Fridays and Mondays.
Vacation.
I fully understand that this could grow into the wrong direction. But isn't an audit always an opportunity to identify areas of improvement? That's
the way it should be. OTI, OTI, OTI.
Yeah.
People who don't appreciate that it's always opportunities to improve, and it's free consultancy, because you're getting somebody telling you these things could be done better or differently.
Yeah. So I fully understand that we don't need 50 audits a year at every place. Fully agree, but only one every 2 years. Again, that relates back to the SMF. If I have a proper SMS where I'm having loads of near misses and performance or procedures not followed in my SMS, then I can say, okay, they've got a pretty good setup to regulate and organize themselves and be honest to themselves.
Yeah.
But if all that goes down to zero or near zero, then I think there could be seen a difficulty on, do I take all this seriously, or do I need to, I'll just do it because it's regulated and it says I need to do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. 100%. Christian, we're coming to the end of the time now. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you. Very easy to talk to you, and representing, what I consider to be a huge organisation with a great history and track record. And I remember in my Lufthansa days, we had several sessions with the senior management of DHL. They were always entertaining, innovative, creative, and it goes without question, the track record and the success. So well done for what you're doing. And it's also nice to see somebody who's so very proud of their brand and their company.
Well, thank you very much, especially on behalf of all the colleagues working with DHL. We only can do these things as a team, and I think that's what the people of DHL Express do. And thank you very much for inviting me.
No, it's a pleasure. And like I said, one of the things that sticks in my mind is the couple of visits that I've had to Leipzig. Absolutely incredible.
Yes, I can only recommend that everyone from the industry, if you want to visit it, we're taking us the time to show you around, get the feeling for it. That's what I tell my handling agents, even their supervisors, to get an understanding why we sometimes push so hard. Have a look at the facility, have a look at how our own guys have to self-handle and work. Maybe you get a better understanding why we're so tough on our handling agents in those cases.
Yeah, lead by example when you've got the credibility. That's the way to do it.
Wow.
Christian, thank you so much. Look forward to seeing you soon. And as soon as you get that place built in Greece, give me a shout, will you?
I will certainly do, and send some olive oil for you as well as soon as it's done.
Yeah, I could do with some of that, my friend. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Brilliant.
Have a good one.
Thank you.